From the massive studios in Raleigh, North Carolina, this is the Cloudcast with Aaron Delp and Brian Gracely, presented by A Cloud Guru, bringing you the best of cloud computing from around the world.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome back to the Cloudcast. We're coming to you live from the massive Cloudcast studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. Hi, Brian.
Hi, Amy. Thanks. After doing the show for 7 years, it's nice to have a new voice introduce it. So, Amy Lewis, welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show.
Never send me the show notes, or I'll try to read your introduction. I think that's the lesson we just learned here.
Yeah,
I've wanted to do that forever, by the way.
So, as a co-podcaster, somebody else who podcasts, I have a serious question to ask you. So, you listen to a bunch of podcasts, other podcasts, correct?
Correct.
And obviously, like, the new thing on podcast is, especially if it's like a good podcast, a big famous podcast, like they have advertisers, and it's everything from like job finding sites to food delivery to underwear to cash apps to whatever, and they all have some sort of like, hey, go to whatever / the name of their podcast and you get a discount, right?
Sure.
So I'm wondering, so we don't have one of those, but I feel like our listeners do wear underwear and do, need to eat and other things. Like, should we give away other people's things just in case our listeners aren't listening to those podcasts? I mean, do I feel like we're leaving them out of discounts they should get?
Well, I mean, anybody who's a Howard Stern listener is probably now the proud owner of a squatty potty. So I think there's a whole untapped market for underpants and other unmentionables. So the cloud unmentionables, I'm not sure what those are.
Well, and I'm not even trying to have our own. I'm just trying to say, like, should we be looking out for our guests, like, discount things? Because they got to buy stuff.
That's what I'm saying. No, that's what I'm saying. Whatever. And I guess maybe they don't even, to your point, line up with the content of the podcast. So right. Maybe you ask your intrepid listeners what it is they'd like to see more discounts on. Are they I'm sure they put their underpants on one leg at a time. They get their food delivery service, their shoes. I've heard pretty much everything.
Yeah.
To the point that it's almost more fun when it's so out of sync with what you're listening to on the podcast. It has nothing to do with anything, and thus is shocking and memorable.
I know. And we have one great sponsor. We love the folks from A Cloud Guru, but like, I do sort of miss that we don't get to ad lib ad reads on the show. That would be sort of fun. I would sort of interrupt the flow of the show, but I feel like it would be kind of fun.
Right. To have like dentine gum.
Yeah.
I think you should look for the most out of place ad. That would be my goal.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we may have to look for that. We'll folks, if you have any ads you'd like us to pass along promo codes from, we'll look out for you. All right. So,
or maybe you go fully local and like it's Little Johnny's PTA, Cub Scout pack 327.
Just ones in Raleigh. Well, I mean, Raleigh is about to become big time, right? Like, people think we're going to get the Amazon thing. Yeah. People think we're going to get the Apple thing. We're like importing earthquakes so that we can be like the West Coast. There's a lot going on.
I'm gonna the next avocado pit I come across, it's gonna be a tree in my yard. I'm committed.
Yeah. Well, cool. Listen, tell folks what you are up to these days. What keeps you employed?
Well, my day job, I am the Director of Influence Marketing for the NSBU, which stands for Networking and Security Business Unit at VMware.
Ah, and we had your friend Peter Ulander on a few weeks ago.
Yes. Peter was in the office. I just came back from HQ. Got to see Peter live and in person yesterday. So
your job, obviously it's a marketing job. How much of it's sort of a technical job, like doing, important technical stuff?
Well, it depends on how technical you want to talk about. Turning the computer off and on, getting the Yeti equipment set up. That's pretty much where we are.
Okay.
So our job is to enable the technical folks to tell their story. It really is a question of platforms. So basically, I'm like the AV club.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Now, second question. We're getting kind of close to summertime. Things are getting warm. So I have a question. So I have a guy question to ask you as a woman. So I have sort of a fashion question to ask you. At what point, is it a weather thing? Is it a how old you are? Like, at what point is it acceptable to start unbuttoning more buttons on the shirt? I'm seeing this more and more, like on TV, in ads. Like, when is that more appropriate?
Well, that's a very fraught question. That's really a cultural question, I would say, because my good friend and colleague Luca Costa, who, speaking of AB Club, helps us do a lot of the video work and podcast work that we do, an expert out in LA, and Italian. And that is a 2-button rule. So you can go 2 buttons unbuttoned. When you go to the 3rd button, he lets us know that's Greece.
Gotcha.
Right.
Gotcha.
So it depends really on your country of origin. At any age, 2 buttons if you're Italian, 3 buttons if you're Greece. And then I think it really is in your 50s or 60s, at which point you become master of your own destiny. And I think that's true across gender lines, because once I'm fully looking forward to 50 and abandoning all rules and normalcy, because I'll have crossed a certain chasm and be ready just to flaunt fashion rules. There you go.
Yeah. Well, listen, so at this point, people are probably like, where in the world are they going with all this stuff? When will they get to some point?
The point? Any point.
Is this just a coffee conversation at Starbucks?
Wait, read to the sponsorship. Right now is where we need a sponsorship.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want to talk about is, and this is really sort of an experimental show, and so that's why you're a good guest and a good host for this, because we like to bounce ideas off of you. I want to talk to you a little bit about kind of women in tech events, when there are women in tech brunches at events, how women get picked to be on panels. I'm trying to kind of understand this subculture. And I kind of want to understand it from a woman's perspective, because you've lived through some of this. We know from other guests, they've been part of these activities. Like, give us some perspective. Like, what are they for? How do they come across? Like, in terms of women's participation, is it something you enjoy doing? Just give us a sense of sort of what that side of the world is like.
Sure. And, it's not that I can, of course, let's start with a caveat. I can't speak for the entire sisterhood. But a lot of us often make jokes of like, yes, everybody knows each other. And some of it is because at events we get our own glamorous bathroom, right? So, I mean, truly that's like a place of our own. Because in unfortunate earlier years, and I'm happy to say this is changing, particularly at certain conferences where there's been concerted effort, or it's just been more appealing to women for whatever reason. You might have to stand in line for even a minute, but secretly we are in there just relaxing and hanging out, because it's, a quiet space in the ladies' room. And I think everybody's different. I have seen and spoken at ones that I think are just tremendously well done. And I think they're done with a particular agenda that's not just like, here, I'm going to teach you how to be a woman, but just educational opportunities that may be of interest, things that are empowering, but it's not all kind of rah-rah, empower. It's actually just kind of a targeted learning opportunity based on a characteristic that may mean some shared enjoyment on a particular thing, for lack of a better way to put it. And those honestly have been very open to men and women, but featuring women speakers, which I think is a pretty exciting way to do it. So the audience is a bit mixed, even if it is maybe 80% women. But the panels and the speaking and the hosting and the moderating and the emceeing and all of it is woman-led, which is kind of exciting. And I've done these before myself. I like to do them where I don't talk about it at all. I just make sure that all the guests are women. Because I think sometimes you have to lead normalcy by being normal.
Right.
And I think you have to speak up. So it's certainly come up in my life frequently. And more than one time I've heard, well, we would have had women, but we just couldn't find any that were qualified. And anyway, I hope we can put in the show notes, one of my favorite Twitter accounts, satire accounts, is Man Who Has It All, who basically it reverses things that you would hear. He changes the gender of common tweets or common sayings. And I think it originated coming off of women's magazines. So you'll wake up and it'll be like, men, wake up early, wife's gone to work, time to stress about your weight and eat 2 almonds. Helpful things like that.
Yeah.
But one of the most beloved threads was one where I think it said a history teacher was looking for famous men in history and having trouble coming up with them. And it just the wisdom of crowds, right? People like, didn't Cleopatra have a husband? Didn't he do something? Or like, it just went on and on like this.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my answer. I've heard too often, like, we just can't find a woman who fits the bill. You're not looking.
Right.
You're not looking.
Yeah. Have you been invited to events or been invited to be on panels and they sort of go, well, we'd love to have you on. I mean, we definitely want to have a woman on the panel. And that sort of sneaks its way in to the decision process?
I said out loud, and again, I won't name the guilty parties of I'm nobody's token. But yes, said in a public setting. So none of us appreciate that either. I do understand that somebody's got to lead, but I love what I'm seeing in the community of take somebody with you. I think it's like the ultimate Amway scheme. I mean, we hear about the boys network, the good old boys network. I think things can work in reverse. People are going to gather and cluster and pair and bond based on some shared quality, right? And it can be any number of things. But if you have friends in the industry who fit the bill and provide a diversity of voice for whatever slice that is, and there's a million of them. I love diversity of voice works. I always try to have diverse teams because as much as you try to think outside your own narrow confines, it's just easier when you add anybody to it that's not like you for any reason, age, time and career, cultural background, anything. It really does improve the conversation.
Yeah, no, I agree. And part of where we're sort of going with this, and I want to bounce this idea off you, and maybe we should have bounced it off you just in an email, but I thought we'd bounce it off on the show. So I think if we go back and look at the guests that have been on the Cloudcast, we probably, the makeup of the guests probably look very much like a lot of tech events. It is, very male dominated. We've had a number of female guests, but not in any sort of large proportion, maybe more so than anywhere else. And, I think we try very hard with sort of all the guests where, we always tell people, look, we just want your passion to come across. We don't have really any agenda with what we're trying to do. But I suspect that somewhere in there, like everything that we do on the show is us interviewing somebody else, right? So no matter what their point of view is, it always sort of comes across from whatever questions that we ask them, whatever research that we've done. And so I've been thinking about this would the show improve? Is there a possibility we could improve the show by sort of getting out of the way? But what I mean by that is if we said, look, the one thing that the show has is the show has a reasonably large following. It has a great consistent following. We're very lucky that people come back week after week. And if you were somebody new trying to start a podcast, or you were somebody who said, look, I'd love to be more visible, right? I think I have interesting things to say, or I'd like to have an opportunity to talk to people. Like, building a platform is sort of hard. It takes a long time. And so my thinking is, what if we went out looking for some new guests, new hosts, not new guests, new hosts. So it's, in essence, we went looking for some female hosts, and we said, look, we're going to get out of the way. We're just simply going to give you access to the platform. We're going to let you pick the guests. We're going to let you pick the topics, and sort of see where the conversations go from there. Just in terms of diversity of perspective, diversity of ideas and so forth, just to use, like you said, wouldn't in any means be the Cloudcast for Women show. It would just be the Cloudcast with women hosts that week.
Right. I mean, obviously, because otherwise you would have to make the clouds pink. Because
right, exactly.
That's pink washing, right? That's what
right.
we do. Because we ladies love that.
That's right. Cloudcast for brunch. And
I really didn't know. I just like food. I didn't know that brunch was uniquely our meal, but apparently it is.
That's right. So just kind of spitballing it. Where's the bad side of that? What am I missing? What would be?
Well, I'm sure maybe I'm not clever enough to come out with all the bad sides, because there always seems to be one. But honestly, I love I love the concept of sharing a platform, because I think in our effort to do things differently, that's just it. You have to do something differently, and you offer what you can. And I have seen a lot of great movement on Twitter of people saying, and men and women, anyone can do this if you're asked to be on a panel. And I have also witnessed this. And again, I won't call out names or publicly shame anybody here, but I watched somebody from stage, call that into question, say we've got to diversify the people who speak, but they didn't like to speak at things that weren't more diverse. And I think you can use your power as a speaker, and I think you can use your power as a platform owner. And you and Aaron have done such an amazing job. I smile. I think back to the first time I saw you record live, and I didn't even know what a Yeti was. Here's this big studio mic, and we're recording a podcast. What is this? And this has gone on. You guys have put the sweat equity in. It's an amazing thing. The guests are always interesting. You guys ask interesting questions. Hopefully a lot of us have been able to learn from you and like you said, maybe take up arms and try it ourselves. To share that platform and the audience is an amazing gift. I think that's a really cool concept.
Yeah. My thought process was, and I don't know where I heard it from, somebody was talking in some other context, and they said, look, at some point you have a lot, if you keep sort of hoarding it to yourself, you sort of miss out on the opportunity to I don't know, provide something else more than what you do. And, I think we've done an okay job in terms of educating people. We do try and give back through things like the Krispy Kreme and other stuff. But this feels like something that we could do that if we did it right, and this is where we'd love to get some feedback from the community. We'd love to get people to suggest to us people that might be great hosts. And my thought process is, back in the day, you used to have people like David Letterman or Johnny Carson would have comedians come on the show, and it would end up, it would launch careers of some people, and other, in other cases, it was just filling time and so forth. What I don't want this to turn out to be, and maybe it would, I don't know, is, hey, we're letting you rent some space, but this will always sort of be our thing. Our hope would be at some point, if we have people that come on and do it repeatably, people love the personality, they love the shows they put on, whatever format they want to do it is, let us help go, kind of plant 1,000 flowers, like help create somebody else's show for them and then get out of their way and just sort of give them a few years of experience. Yeah, essentially something like that.
I think that's fantastic. And I love your analogy, because I think the thing we forget is sometimes a great comedian is launched, and sometimes you just have a really great show. I used to work in publishing, and one of the most meaningful things someone taught me is every author isn't meant to write multiple great books. And you think about that, right? Because you think about maybe your favorite book, and it's very profound, but maybe that was that author's one great book. There's no thing that says you have to be a serial operator. Right. So I think that's kind of what you're saying here, right? Some people, it may be one great guest, or maybe that'll incite them to go try and start their own show. Everybody's got something different to give. So I love the flexibility in this as well, because it's sort of a self-chosen path.
Yep. So here's my next question for you, because the one challenge of this is podcasting is like anything else. It ends up being somewhat better after a number of repetitions. It's like anything, the more you practice, the more you get to do it. And the last thing we would want to do is have somebody say, well, I'd like to do it, but I'm too nervous. How, any suggestions? Because I'm really kind of not totally sure how to go about soliciting ideas for people or soliciting people or whatever. But how do you think we go about trying to find people that, have a personality that, is going to be drawn towards doing this? Because again, it's a lot of talking, it's some research and stuff like that. But also there's a part of me that wants this to be flexible and open and try and help a lot of people. But at the same time, I want to be respectful of the current Cloudcast listeners and not sort of have them be like, oh, okay, it's, this is like a Wednesday night amateur hour and we're just, we're going to get whatever. And, so I'm trying to figure out how do we best find people that are super passionate about it, try and make them successful, but at the same time, figure out what the right bar is for starting things, or just, how do we find people that want to do this, and have some sort of vetting process that doesn't seem like it's arbitrary, if you will. No.
Totally appreciated. And I will just gently say that, of course, this is true on both sides of the fence. I know You're not saying that as a gendered comment. You and I personally, I'm sure, have conducted many a stink bomb interview, like you said, on the road to trying to be less of a stink bomb interview. And you never know. And to your point, you don't want somebody to give up after one try. You don't want people to be nervous. And this, again, it cuts across gender lines.
Oh, yeah.
I personally love like an Amway scheme. As in, I think that could be fun to have a person then nominate and challenge somebody, see if they take up the mantle. I think that it's almost like a buddy system, that it's always great to have somebody. Maybe I certainly benefited from an apprenticeship with you guys. I've talked to you both on air about this. We did on the Geek Whispers, getting tips from you guys about effective podcasting and how to do it over the long haul. I've certainly asked a million questions in private as well. So there's research of multiple kinds. So I think that, having a little bit of a support system, like you said, you're offering, and a buddy system so that people could have access to people to answer questions of how to go from just starting to good to great. I think there's a lot of different support systems that could come with this. And I think when the content and the topic are interesting, it is a matter of getting people used to hearing different voices talk about it, to be honest.
Yep.
You and I have talked for a lot of years, and you introduced me to several sports, commentators that really broke into this field. And their voices have made a lot of us not feel strange to hear sports coming through a particular tone of voice that's not a guy. And I think that's what this is about too. Honestly, like, we're in people's ears. Voice tone helps. And the more times the different tones of voice you hear talking about things, right now, unfortunately, I think women talking about technology can be as shocking to somebody as having a little kid talk about nuclear physics. Right. There is just this disjointedness that we have to normalize. So I think it's just getting people out there using that who knows somebody, and then repeat.
Yep. Well, listen, let me do this. So, in the most simplest way, we'll probably end up writing something up and put it on the website and all. But for now, if you're listening and you go, hey, I think I know somebody would be good, or you're listening and you say, I would like to throw my hat in the ring, hit us up a couple different ways. Show at thecloudcast.net. You can hit us up at Twitter, at thecloudcast.net. Just kind of find us through one of the public ways. If you just want to say like, hey, can I DM you? Or again, if you want to shoot us an email, show at thecloudcast.net. Let us know if you're interested. Let us know if you have somebody that you're like, I would love to hear so-and-so. Give this a try, and we'll start sort of vetting through the process. And again, the goal of this is to make this, something that happens on a regular basis. The challenge of podcasting is always scheduling and finding time for people to do it, and finding them to find guests and all that other thing. So, this is still super, again, this is just a brainstorming session on maybe how to make this useful. But, hit us up if you're interested. We're very open to ideas, and we'd love to sort of meet new personalities that we may not have met before. So, well, listen, go ahead.
And I have to say, spoiler alert, I want to throw my name in the ring just because I had this opportunity when you brought this up with me. I immediately thought of this person who I got to meet on a panel recently, and she was just the coolest, and we talked forever. And I thought, how on earth have you not been quote unquote on the circuit before? It was like her first panel, and she's got a cool job. I won't reveal too much because I hope we can get her. But she's got really interesting things to say. And anyway, so your concept paired really well with my realizing, it's like a duh moment, Amy, but there are all these amazing stories yet to be told. And sometimes it's just lucky circumstance that you get to hear it.
Cool. Well, very cool. Well, yeah. Well, so we'll put it in the ring, and hopefully we can materialize some of these. So, last thing before we wrap up, your kids play soccer,
yes.
And as a spry 29-year-old, you are now starting to play soccer. Number one, why are you doing that?
I'm a method actor. You know this about me, of all things. Like, it's hard for me to watch, just like podcasting, right? It's hard for me to watch and not try it. And so I have taken them to so many games over the years. I've sat on the sidelines. I coached. I wanted to see what I could do. I played my first full 11-a-side game last week, and I had an assist. I was so proud. They completely ignored me until I got the assist. And then they put somebody to watching me. They were like, oh, maybe she's not as incompetent as she first appears. I'm actually as incompetent as I first appear. But still, I play with a lot of heart.
Yeah. No, this is a all women's league or co-ed because you're in Chapel Hill, which is a very soccer rich area.
Well, true story, without, again, revealing too many details about my personal life, one of my kids is coached indirectly by an Olympian. Not one, but 2 gold medals. Like, this is an insane place for women's soccer. It's very cool. And, half of the U.S. women's team plays for our local team, the NC Courage. That would be my ad. Go Courage. But no, this is a mixed over 40. So the secret is you have to be old and you can't run into each other.
Okay.
It's no contact.
Nice.
Which I figured that out.
Now,
again,
you do know that means that you still can get hurt. Old people can just get hurt just running around.
Oh my gosh. Somebody collided into me and I almost turned my ankle. But when I figured out that I could also use my body as a weapon and they didn't want to run into a girl, yeah, I totally shielded a ball out because somebody was afraid they would run into me because somebody had just collided into me. I hope my team is not listening because the guy was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, oh, it's fine. Sorry, guys.
All right. Last little things. Do you have a pick? Do you have like a favorite pick and a dark horse pick for the World Cup?
Everybody's going for Germany. I just can't. I'm sorry. I just can't. My sort of Cinderella sweetheart team is probably Costa Rica. Just because I love Keylor Navas. And I know you're going to make fun of me, but I would argue in soccer, you can't just have the glory-seeking strikers. There's plenty of those. You got to have great goalies. And Keylor Navas is, if the man might be 40. He's like Buffon from Italy. He's like one of the older seasoned goalies, and he's freaking incredible. It's just fun to watch. So watch Costa Rica just to watch him keep things out of the back of the net. But my heart is with Brazil. And I know that makes me seem like everybody in the world, but my very favorite player, Willian, is Brazilian and is on their starting 11.
Yeah. Yeah, I always root for Brazil. I like the idea of having one name. I think that makes a big deal.
I mean, yeah, like Willian, Marcelo, Debinha, it's like everybody. Yeah.
So I like them, and then my dark horse is Iceland. I feel like they're sort of like they're like the Minnesota of the World Cup.
They are. I mean, honestly, those guys are working at like the Icelandic equivalent of Home Depot, or like they're postal workers, and this is true. And then they go out. And it's not like here in Chapel Hill where we get 80% sunny weather. They're playing on ice. This is not an easy. I know
the whole land is made of ice. It's right in the name.
It's right there. It's incredible. It was so much fun to watch them 4 years ago. Yeah.
All right. Last question for those of you, since we started the show with podcast, we'll end it with podcast. Do you have a favorite soccer podcast?
The people I listen to most, look for the 2 Robbies. It's number 2 Robbies. And soccer commentary can be kind of annoying. So my second tip is listen to anything in Spanish. If you please at least listen to one World Cup game fully in Spanish. If you speak it, then you're like, okay, duh, Amy, I do that already. If you don't, it is truly the best. Like, nobody yells goal like these people. That's a podcasting voice right there.
Yeah.
But the 2 Robbies, they're friends, and they have that rapport that makes podcasts so listenable, and they're just smart and funny and just love what they do. And I don't know. I don't like listening to sports commentary where they try to tear people down to be, you know what I mean? Like, they're trying to be the mean, cool kids.
Yeah.
These guys just love it, and they're honest and direct. But it's not like they're never mean. That's no fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and most of them never played. So it's really, they shouldn't be mean.
Exactly.
So, Well, listen, since you started the show, I will wrap it up. Folks, thanks. Amy, thanks for being on the show, as always. Folks, thanks for listening. As we said, if you have suggestions for our sort of grand experiment here, send them to us either via Twitter or email. The details are in the show notes. And Aaron should be back next week. I know we've all been traveling a lot, but folks, thanks for listening, and we will talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Cloudcast. Please visit thecloudcast.net to find more podcasts, show notes, and everything social media. And visit acloud.guru for all your cloud training needs.